Hey, this is Brandon from thirstgym.com, and today we're going to talk about why I chose to not do steroids. Now, this is a video that is in my house, so it's a little bit different than the normal weekly videos that I post. I didn't really feel too good over the weekend while I was preparing to shoot content, so I thought I would kind of take it back a little bit. But I really wanted to talk about this topic. I thought about making this a podcast, but I think it's honestly just better just a YouTube standalone video of itself. Now, I do know that some people have thought that I have taken steroids to compete in powerlifting and athletically. And I'm just going to be brutally honest with you. I have not. I did choose and think about it for a very long time before I made that decision. But I ultimately chose not to take them. And I want to kind of talk about why. And if you're somebody that is on the fence about taking them, hopefully I can give you some rationale about why I chose not to. I feel like there's plenty of videos from people out there of why they chose to take it. And honestly, the person I'm probably going to defer to the most here is probably going to be Pete Rubish. He's very open about his story and why he chose to take things, and he's kind of cleaned his life up from that front and talked about that. So I would highly recommend checking out Pete Rubish's YouTube channel. You're going to find a lot of great content there if you are choosing to take them. However, if you're on the fence and you're leaning more towards, like I did, to not take steroids or performance enhancing drugs, this is hopefully going to be a YouTube video for you and to help you come up with that. So the first thing I want to talk about is that I've been an athlete my entire life. I've loved athletics. I've tried just about everything you can think of, from weird stuff to karate, to basketball, to baseball, to tennis. Ended up wrestling. Could have went and wrestled in college and chose not to. And then obviously have done bodybuilding. I was obviously my most successful in powerlifting, breaking all-time world records in the squat, and my highest total, ranking fourth all-time at one point, and only having one actual head-to-head loss with anybody, and it was Richard Hawthorne, the all-time world record holder in the weight class that I competed in. So I feel like my resume in terms of how I competed holds up very strongly, even in equipped bench pressing. I've got a top 8, I think, all-time bench press at 132. So, I've done a lot of really great things in the sport for me personally. Some people might aspire for more, but the fact that I broke not only a world record, but broke my own world record very cleanly, I might add, at big stages, not backyard meets. I think for me, I've done more than what I've ever thought I would ever do in the sport. Plain, simple. If you would have told me when I started powerlifting, you're going to go on to break an all-time world record drug-free, I would not believe you. Now, I will tell you that the thought process came to my mind after I broke it the first time. What could I do if I took drugs? And I thought and marinated on this for some time, because as a high level competitor, you always want to do better. You're always going to ask that what if? What could I have done? What could be different? And I still ask that even with my back issues. But ultimately, I'm asking myself, could I do numbers that could literally be like unobtainable, like that people would never be able to touch? Is that possible? And I know people say records are always meant to be broken, and that's true to an extent. However, there is an upper limit of what the human body can do in any sort of event. I mean, there's just going to be records that don't get broke. Like I don't really see anybody breaking Wilt Chamberlain's 100 points in a game in the NBA. I just don't see it happening. The way the game is played, the way the athletes are now, like I think they're more athletic, but I think just the way the sport is, I just don't think it's going to happen, right? You're not going to see somebody be that dominant, both physically and talently at the same time in that sport, right? Or, is the 100-meter time ever going to be broken from Usain Bolt? Who knows? And I think powerlifting is going to get to that point. Weightlifting is going to get to that point to where the numbers are just going to be like literally impossible to be outside of gene splicing and things like that. So, in terms of just pure genetic potential from normal reproductive of humans, there's going to be a limit, right? So I kind of really, to circle back, I kind of thought to myself, is it worth it? What are the pros? What are the cons? The pros are, could I hit a 1,500-pound total at 132? Could I squat 600? Could I bench over 350 and pull, over 550? Essentially, that's what I was kind of looking at to make that happen. And those numbers would just be absolutely insane to be able to do it that weight class, let alone if I could do it drug free. But I was honest with myself that the deadlift wasn't far off natural and the bench press wasn't too far off natural. It was just going to take some pretty severe weight cuts and things like that. And those were already starting to be a little bit hard on my body. And then so I thought, well, if I take drugs, it's only going to make the weight cut harder. And then I'm only adding in more variables. And then I'm putting my long-term health potentially at risk. If I start adding mass, am I going to have to bump up a weight class? And then is the whole reason why I'm doing this going to fade away? It really just got to be a point to where I sat down and thought to myself, what do I really want to do? Why did I get into powerlifting? And ultimately it was because I liked lifting weights. End of the story. And I just happened to be good at the 3 lifts, squat, bench, and deadlift, particularly squat, obviously. I'm a little bit bent to bench well. And I thought I deadlifted pretty well for my build. I'm not built to deadlift well, and I missed a 4 times body weight a couple times in meets, but I still pulled really heavy. My heaviest pull being 510 at 132, missed some heavier pulls in the 520s going for big totals. But I really wanted to see what I could do naturally. And then once I was just kind of there, and I realized what I wanted to do with my life, which was, as now I open my gym Thirst, and I've always wanted to train athletes for a living. And I was always influenced by better athletes than me growing up. I used that as fuel, both mentally and physically, to work hard. And I like seeing what they could do. And these are obviously people I knew that were, not taking drugs, especially like in high school with like basketball and wrestling and things like that. I do know that drugs were part of the sport, but I thought if I'm going to be a role model and influential person in my community among small and or younger athletes, I want them to know that doing great things can happen if you have the time, the effort, the resources, and genuinely work at stuff. Now, do I think that any of the kids I work with are going to go break world records? Probably not, right? But I'm not going to take that away from them. I'm not going to tell them they can't do it. I'm going to say it's a possibility if you do X, Y, Z, you do all the right little things could happen. But for me, the world record to many of these kids is getting Division 1 or 2 scholarship, or going to play Division 3 or NAIA, or maybe playing even minor league baseball at some point. Like, those are very awesome things to see, and to watch kids that I get that I don't want to say are like unathletic, but when they walk in, you kind of have an idea, at least at this point in my career. I can watch younger kids move and think, this kid might have potential to go on and play at the next level. Maybe not. Maybe I'm going to whiff. But I've seen enough athletic bodies move, the kids that just naturally have it. But not only am I getting the kids sometimes that naturally have it, now I'm instilling the work ethic, doing the right small things, the performance enhancement from middle school up to high school, 7 years of training age in a strength and conditioning room for a young athlete that wants to go play in college is going to put them so far ahead of their competitors if they get started at the right age with the right foundations, the right training, and the right mentorship. That can be the difference from not playing in college to playing Division 3, or from playing Division 3 to Division 2, or maybe even low-level Division 1, or a kid that might be a Division 1 talent like a MAC school, but then now is going to be going to Big 10 or the Big 12 or the ACC, a Power 5, even though conference changes, but going to like a Power 5 school, like, they're leveling up. And one of the things that I kind of circled back on as well was Dave Tate's old video of talking about genetic potential. And if you've not seen that video, I highly suggest you watch it. I'll try to remember to link it in the description below so you can check it out. But essentially, Dave talks about PED use, steroids, performance enhancing drugs being your ACE card, right? You only get one of them, and you can only play it one time. And when you play it, it's going to essentially bump you up a level. So if you take it in high school to go play in college, that's probably where you're going to cap out. If you take it in college to go play at semi-pro level or whatever, then it might get you to that level. But if you're doing it from a high level D1, it might be enough to get you to the combine. If you take it going into the combine and do great things in your rookie camp, it gets you onto the roster, right? It's only going to get you one step. You're not going to take these substances and go from zero to hero. It does not work that way. And I will be the first to tell you, I've known plenty of people, both personally, at lower levels, high levels, that have taken this stuff, that have gone on to do great things, put big pounds on their totals, see performance enhancement, and done good things. And I've also seen people that take stupid amounts of drugs and don't do jack shit with it. And it's a giant waste of their time and money and their health, right? So when it came back to me, the two ultimate things I thought were, my legacy as a coach and what I'm doing for kids. What I'm doing is because of something I didn't have, and I want to pass that on and give kids the training and the resources to be able to go do something great with their life in sports, because I didn't get to do that. I could have went and wrestled, but I chose not to. I put my academics and thinking long-term over my athletic wants, and it paid off. I genuinely think I paid off. I think I made the right decision based upon where my career is now at 35 years of age. Now, the health side of it also got me thinking, from someone that I talked to, was that it could be one of those things that you have to decide, am I willing to do this for the rest of my life? Because you very well could put your hormones in a very bad place. You could get put in a place mentally that's not healthy. You could destroy relationships. You could destroy friendships. You could destroy any sense of a happy life that you have by doing that and going down this rabbit hole of chasing something that may not be worth it. And the reason I say may is because you never know. If I would have squatted 600 and hit that 1,500-pound total, would I have a bigger Instagram following? Would I have a bigger business? Would people trust my training? Would they say, oh, well, he's done literally whatever it takes to do this? Maybe, but I don't know. But to me, that was not worth it. Why would I going to consider jeopardizing my health for the future of the ones that I want to the young ones that I want to influence in a positive way, and then ultimately my future family, which at the time I didn't have, but I knew I wanted to get married, settle down, open a business, have kids. Like, that could all not be there, and I could not be in this position where I'm at now to be able to have this discussion, but to develop and mentor and be a positive limelight on some of the kids that I work with. So if you're somebody that's considering doing this, but you're like me and you're leaning towards not doing it, I will tell you that I have no regrets. Okay. I have no regrets not doing it. Do I sometimes think, man, what if? Of course. Why wouldn't I? I'd be a fool to not think what if. But do I sit back and be like, man, I wish I would have got on test or D-ball or, literally anything, trend, whatever. Right now, the answer is no. I do not regret it, especially knowing with the way my low back health is now. I would like to think that magnifying that would make things worse. And I probably would have gotten taken out of the game anyways, at least at the level that I was at. And I just don't think it was worth it or would have been worth it. Right. So, and then I think the other thing too is that if you're on this fence, you need to understand that there are quote unquote better ways to do things in terms of getting your blood work done and talking to smart people that have done this and what they regret and what they wish they would have known and how to start slow. And, I can't tell you those things because I don't have the experience, but there's hundreds, if not thousands of people that are, I don't want to say qualified, but they've put their body through that. And there's going to be people on both sides of those fences. I wish I wouldn't have done this, knowing what I know now. There's people that I don't regret it. Here's the only things I wish I would have changed. So, there's plenty of those people out there, Pete Rubish being one of those people that are going to give you the real information. And somebody from my end, I guess I just want you to know that, I am drug free. I have been drug free. I can pull up my test scores and show you how wildly high they were when I was 33. And I can't even imagine how high they would have been when I was 28 because I didn't get them tested. So that would be another thing is that, if you're young, you're on the fence, go get blood work and see where your testosterone level is now, because you might be able to get on TRT to be healthier and just have a better lifestyle, and your training might feel better anyways. And then you're going to be doing it in a better, healthier perspective. Granted, you might still obviously be taking something, but if it's controlled and prescribed and it's going to help your health, I think you should do that. But if you don't have that baseline to even to go off of anyways, who knows what the future holds. But you've also got to think about the long-term effects. And like I said, the big thing that I thought about is, do I want to do this the rest of my life? Do I potentially want to have to take testosterone or any kind of other supplement or performance enhancing drug to keep my life happy and feeling good? And do I want to risk taking these and chasing these things that ultimately are not going to guarantee any kind of financial benefit? And to me, that was no. So, I hope this helps just one person. That's the end of the day, is this for help one person, kind of get my story out there of why I chose not to. And that I do think if you are somebody that's on the fence and you're trying to compete in powerlifting or a strength sport, and you're like, man, there's no way I can compete. Now there's obviously the quote unquote drug tested federations like USAPL and I think WRPF and USPA and AAPF and, NASA. There's lots. And, I chose to not compete. I started off in NASA, but once I realized I was just good, I said, I don't care. I want to compete against the best, even if that means I get my butt absolutely handed to me. That's totally okay. Excuse me. I'm sorry about that. That's entirely okay to me because I'm competing for me and to beat my PRs. And if I can beat people on drugs without drugs, I want to do that. That's just the kind of competitor that I am, that, I want to go rub that in their face. I don't need a federation to tell me that. I know from an integrity perspective what I've done to get where I am and where I want to go. And I'm not going to let a federation kind of hold me back for that. I'm going to go toe to toe with some of the best on the best platforms available. And to me, that's the way that I look at the sport. So, if you are a drug tested person, I hate to tell you that USAPL is no better than APF or RPS or, the WPO or whatever. People are going to talk about the judging standards and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, if you hold yourself to the standards and integrity that you believe, you can go compete wherever you want and go toe to toe with the best people and have fun with it. And that's what I loved about powerlifting, and choosing to not take drugs let me do that and almost kind of flex on people at times that, hey, I'm not doing some of the stuff that you are, and I can compete and I can do this. And that was motivating enough for me to just continue to not do it. How far can I push my body, not only naturally, but from nutrition side to hydration side to how I'm organizing my training to how I'm sleeping. Like, there's so many other variables there that can aid your performance that people just want to take shortcuts. And I'm not against you taking those drugs if that's the route that you choose to go. I would 100% support that because that's your choice. But for me, like I said, just as competitive I am and the things that I was thinking about long term, it wasn't worth it. And I understand people don't have those kind of goals like I do. You want to work a normal 9 to 5 job where people aren't going to care what you're doing, and it's not going to affect your future or your lifestyle, or you're not in a serious relationship, and you could do all that stuff. Again, as I said, it's up to you, and it's where your life is at. I just knew where I wanted my life to be and the integrity that I wanted to have for the youth athletes that I wanted to train. Because I was that kid at some point, and I looked up to people a lot, and that's, now I'm in that role. I'm in that leadership role. I'm showing kids what is possible, because when they ask me, what I squatted or what I benched today, they still look at me like I'm a freak, and I'm not. I'm around a lot of strong people, and I think like what I do, and I'm like, man, I'm really not that strong sometimes. But when you break it down to the percentage of the world, it's probably pretty far up there. I'm just around a lot bigger and stronger people more consistently, so I'm as unfazed. So that's another thing to think about is, what's the end goal of your competitive cycle? If you're trying to break an all-time world record, that might be what it takes for you, just from a genetic standpoint. But, I'm just fortunate that I'm a small, stockier built guy. I played athletics. I was relatively athletic, and I think athletic people going into powerlifting have much more success than those that don't. I'm not saying you can't get strong without playing sports, because that's, there's plenty of dudes that pick up powerlifting late, and ladies, and they do phenomenal. But you just got to ask yourself, what's the end goal, and make those real obtainable goals. Like I said, I didn't think I would break an all-time record. I just wanted to squat 500 pounds. I even thought if I did it at 148 or 165, it was going to be impressive. Let alone when I went and did it at 132 and then, went 67 pounds over that. So, as they say, aim for the stars, but if you land on the moon, still be happy. And that's the way that you can kind of take your career, but also from a performance standpoint, you've got to ask yourself, do I have the resources available to make this wise decision? And if I don't, my recommendation would be to put it off as long as possible, because like I said, you're only going to get it once, and to where it's really going to make a difference. And then also the second thing too is going to be, do you already have the other intangibles in line? If you're not focusing on your sleep, your nutrition, your hydration, how your training's laid out, like you're on, like out of 52 weeks, you're missing 2 or 3 training sessions at the absolute most. Like if you're missing more than that outside of like illnesses and stuff like that, like you're just straight up, moving days around, like your training days got to be non-negotiable. And, the crew you got to be with is non-negotiable. And the atmosphere that you're with has got to be supportive. Like there's just a lot of those things that people don't have. And I had all those. I had every single piece of that lined up, and I still chose to not do it. And that doesn't make me any better than anybody else. But I do think it's something that people don't just genuinely sit down and marinate on. Somebody peer pressures them into taking something, or, oh, you should do this. But I'm telling you, man, if you get around the right people and learn how to do the right stuff and train the right way, and really mentally learn how to train, you will go much farther than you ever thought you could. And in a day and age where everybody's hiring coaches, and I coach people for a living, both in person and online, and people bounce ideas like stuff like this to me all the time and ask me what I think, and ultimately it's their decision. But the people that I work with, if they're, for lack of a better term, if they're fucking around and not doing the shit they should be doing, I'm gonna let them know, especially if they're taking any kind of performance-enhancing drug, because one, you're wasting your money and your time, but you're not optimizing your training. And training optimization is key. And being a coach, I want to teach you how to train, because I'm not going to be your coach for life. I mean, I'm going to be your friend and help you in rough times, but you're like, I'm not going to write your programming. And if you really, really want to be good at the sport, having a coach is good for an accountability. But the best lifters, regardless, drugs, not drugs, does not matter, know how to auto-regulate their training and make decisions in the moment when they should and shouldn't, and how to pivot those on a split second throughout the day. And that's what, like I said, with or without drugs. The drugs are just going to help amplify that when you need to make those decisions. And when it comes time to turn things on, you can dial things in much faster and be more, you can slow cook things and you don't have to be as aggressive. Not saying that it covers anything up, but obviously if you're not on drugs, every little bit from a recovery standpoint is key. And ultimately that's what the drugs help gap, right? Is it enhances recovery. And if you're not, that's why doing all those little things are so much more important, because when you add that on top of it, you're just, I don't want to say you're unstoppable, but I've seen people make insane progress very quickly because they do all the right things and they add just that little bit goes a long way. And as somebody that's drug free, you have to be a little bit more decisive in your lifestyle factors, right? You can't go out and drink and do all that kind of stuff. So, I'm not going to try to ramble too much more. I think this is just a topic that's genuinely interesting to a lot of people. And if you go look at my open powerlifting, you'll see I did NASA and then I jumped around to a bunch of different federations that are not tested. And at the end of the day, I joined Elite FTS. I was around some of the highest competitive powerlifters in the world, some of the best people in the world. And I was just pushed very gently but hardly to just go after whoever I could go after, however I wanted to go after them. And that's what I liked. So, I felt like I did everything that I ever wanted to do in the sport. Not that I'm completely stepped away, because I still want to do some bench competitions here and there. But, for me, drugs would have been a means to an end, not this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And there's just some people that they want to compete forever. And hats off to them. They know how to do that stuff, and that's who they are. But that was not for me. I am a very competitive person, but my competitive thing now is my business and rocking my market and doing things like that, where now, competing in powerlifting is not a top 4 priority in my life. It's just not. And saying that at 35 makes me even more thankful that I chose not to, because if I was having to continue to use different substances to keep my hormones where they need to be and to feel like my training had purpose again, that just wouldn't sit right with me. And like I said, the other thing too is just that if kids ask me if I'm drug free and I can't say no, or let alone I say yes and I'm lying, that's not the kind of person I am. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm a straight shooter. I'm not going to hide anything. And that's kind of what this video is from. So, yeah, that's, should you take PEDs or not, from a person that's not taking them? That's my story. Hopefully this, like I said, helps just one person make a decision, whatever way you want to take that decision. I'm not going to tell you how to make that decision, but I want you to hear it from somebody that chose not to, why I did not to, and that I do not regret my decision. But I do understand that some of the things that I could have done could have, ifs and buts, candy and nuts, but every day is not Christmas. So things could have been different, but the way things have turned out, I'm 100% thankful for the decisions that I made, the people that I talked to about this decision, how I marinated on it. It was just the right thing for me. And yeah, so if you have questions about this, got a little bit deep, and I'm sorry I went on for almost 30 minutes, but if you've got questions about something like this, I really would like to have a discussion. Feel free to message me, leave comments. I'm very open about this stuff, and I'm more than happy to talk to you privately to help you make a decision that you feel is best for you. So let me know in the comment section below. Was this something that you liked? A little hard to talk. I'm always open to whatever content people are kind of interested in, but it's just been kind of marinating on me for a little bit and thought it was worthwhile to post. So like I said, let me know in the comment section, and we'll see you again next week.